In the autumn of 1937, 3 carriages left Calder's Gate for Wren's Hollow along the old Drover's Road known as the Haunted Path. Among the travelers were Miriam Hale, a schoolmistress, Elias Voss, a young mapmaker, Thomas Rook, a retired sergeant, and a handful of strangers recorded only as passengers. The route bent by Ringstone, an iron ring set in a ragged stone where county maps warned cattle would not cross. Amos Fell, the drover, saw them enter the pines at dusk. In his ledger he wrote, "Fog like breath." They went on, then nothing. By morning the carts had returned to Ringstone, doors closed, trunks locked, horses gone. A child's wooden toy lay half buried in bracken. Prince led into the trees and stopped. Inspector Arthur Blythe arrived on October 12th. Miriam's journal ended mid-sentence, "Do not let them speak the list," the final line underscored. Elias's maps bore fresh inked sigils near the ruins of Brackenwell Priory. Thomas's tobacco tin held 2 gold-washed discs, each engraved with an I and the letters C and H. County ledgers showed C&H, acquisition, Ringstone, 1892. The initials traced to the Hargrove account for the Brackenwell estate. Rumor spread like soot. An ex-servant swore she had seen masked men at Brackenwell, their visages waxen, marching with a child between them. A farmer said his cattle refused Ringstone, and that a pale child stood stirring the hedge. An anonymous photograph arrived at Blythe's office showing the circle at dusk, faint impressions like small palms pressed into soil, and on its back, in careful script, we left it with our names. Brackenwell Priory's altar bore candle stubs and scorch marks. Its cellar smelled of earth and old oil. In the outer wall, a shallow notch looked less like a mason's mark than a tally. Masked men, described by one servant as paper-voiced, met beneath the pines with lanterns whose light chilled. They read from a rough book, and they signed initials in a ledger. Blythe's team found slips titled "List of Returns," with marginalia, "Withdrawn 2, provision made 1." A 1901 note mentioned "to stanch the Moor's appetite." Fields boomed after assemblies, dissenters suffered. Tokens passed through trunks in silence. Personal artifacts told quieter stories. Miriam's diary held a pressed sprig of pine and the faint scent of lamp soot. Elias's maps bore a margin note in a different hand. They count in 3s. Thomas's discs, held to the ear, hummed faintly. Some heard a stringed tone, others a voice half-formed. Mrs. Lytton, the midwife, kept recollections folded in a drawer. Infants who, years after October 12th, were born singing other names as if reciting a ledger. Letters and parcels carried fragments, a soot-smeared bonnet embroidered with an I, a photograph of palm marks with no sender. In 1944, a soldier salvaging rubble at the Priory found a tin with 12 slips, names dated October 12, 1937, each crossed. Between the lines, someone had inked infant names, a drowned boy's name, the name of a merchant whose barn prospered after an assembly. The pattern read clinical: record, exchange, silence. Prosperity came at a cost. A grocer's ledgers balanced with coin that could not be traced. A farmer's wheat doubled overnight. A town councilor's children thrived while neighbors' fortunes withered. A petty thief who stole Ringstone in the 1950s returned it at dawn and would not afterward speak of nights on the moor. The object moved through drawers and trunks as if kept alive. When bones surfaced in 1991, osteology dated them accordingly. Beneath an uprooted pine, roots lay 12 small bones arranged with iron nails and a scrap of vellum marked C&H. The remains matched the Moor's ledger across a generation. The Hargrove mark bound the practice to a family account that had kept meetings, Brackenwell Assembly, on October 12th, from the 1880s through mid-century. Minutes were burned, ledgers remained. Blythe kept a copy of the list of returns. He wrote that the ledger behaved like a living thing. Names could be exchanged. Letters he filed away spoke in careful euphemism, provision, returns, to keep balance. Those entries between the lines, infant births, sudden deaths, inexplicable favors, read like substitutions. One man refused and paid with his son. Another prospered and kept a silence, like a pact. Testimony suggested a grim commerce, men in wax masks, oilskin cloaks, lanterns that gave no warmth. A wicker cage carried beyond the pines, and lullabies chanted in a voice that was not wholly human. Tokens marked C&H appeared in trunks and sugar tins. When rubbed, they hummed. Once a photograph arrived with a child's hand writing across its back, "We do not vanish, we are taken care of." Inspector Blythe's private hand grew weary. His notes end with the same exhausted suspicion. He recorded conversations with vicar and midwife, ledger scraps, the photograph, the tin. He wrote that the ledgers were not mere memorials, but instruments. They recorded names and permitted the exchange of small lives for harvests, coin, and quiet towns. The twist is not merely a burial or a bargain, but a contract written into lives. The list of returns was not only a roster of the taken, it was a ledger that could be balanced by substitution. Names placed between the lines, infants, sudden deaths, births that arrived oddly timed, looked like payment. The ledger feeds and is fed, and those who handled it passed the burden like an heirloom. Even now the moor keeps its accounts. Children are scolded from Ringstone. Travelers skirt the haunted path when fog slouches low. On certain evenings, those who pause by the pines claim to hear a faint hum, like a rubbed token, or the scratch of a pencil tracing a map at the edge of the forest. Do not speak their names. If you do, the ledger would, hungry as a field, turn its page.